In this video, we'll use the sales order report to introduce you to tables, which are all these things with the purple graph, and to subreports. We've got one of them right there for the memos. So each of these tables that you see on the screen, you can get into it by clicking the little table 1, table 2 icons down below. Unfortunately, there's not a really good way to tell which one of these is table 1, table 2, but usually it's a pretty easy guess. In table 1, you see we have a bunch of fields, and they're basically in two different cells, two columns. So on the left side, you can see column 1, column 2. We're not using anything in the table header or column header, all in the table detail band. Let's start with a different table that's a little bit easier to see what's going on. In table 2 here, seller, payment terms, that's basically, you can see this first table below the addresses, that's what shows up there. So we see seller, and that's the header, and down below is the field that actually grabs the field from our query. Oh, and we actually have some ternary statements here. So it says if this parameter display seller is set to username, because it's a combo box, we'll talk about those more in another video, so that means you have different options, then show the salesman. And if that combo box display seller parameters is set to first, then show the first name instead, and otherwise show the first name and last name. So there's a conditional thing in there. Some of these other ones are much more straightforward. Payment terms simply shows the payment terms field that applies to it, and so forth. Table 3, these are your actual items, your sales order items. So in this case, the mountain bike and the repair service, and it would repeat endlessly in the detail band, because you notice this is the table detail band where these columns appear, depending on how many items we had in the sales order. So it's pretty straightforward. If I stretch like this, you can see this is the width of the column, and that is the field inside it. And of course, I can double click to make it match whatever fields are set inside there. Here under quantity ordered, we have one field for the quantity decimal and one field for the unit of measure, which of course displays like that in the report. So there are a lot of little tricks to deal with tables and make them match up, and formatting is kind of a pain. But here's the other main thing you need to know about tables. The data from the tables does not come from this main query. This main query right here, the fields that come from this, up here in the select statement, everything you see appearing down below, that's what shows up in these parts of the report you can see that are not in a table. But in a table, you need to use one of these other queries, other data sets. So there's one for sales order information. So that's going to be the, in fact, watch this. We can right click on each table and say edit the table data source. And you can see that we are in fact using the SOInfo dataset query to populate the information inside that table. But that's not all you need to know about it. The other thing is that when you, I'm going to show you how to pass parameters. So when you click modify report and you see this required parameter and all these optional parameters and all these columns that you can turn on or turn off, these all have to be in the bottom level parameters list. That's how they get onto that screen. But they also, if you want to actually use them in the data set for one of the tables, you have to pass those parameters down to the table. So here's how you do it. Click on edit table source, click on parameters, and there they all are. So if they weren't there yet, you'd have to click add, and you'd select the parameter that you wanted to add there, and then you click here, it opens up, and you have to go to the parameters. Oh, and you have to already have this existing. Let me show you where that has to be. And double click that, click apply, and now you've got a matching one from the main data set and from the sub data set, and you would click OK, but I didn't do it because it's already there, obviously. and then you click OK when you're done with that. In each data set, it has its own list of parameters and fields and variables, and you have to take it from the top parameter, copy that, and paste it into the parameters of the sub one, and then they're available when you click on Edit Table Source, Parameters, Add, and then they'll be in this list. So kind of a pain. That's one of the worst things about tables is you have to go in and add all the parameters. Otherwise, it's not going to work for you. So those are the main things you need to know for a table, for using a table. Now, a subreport is similar, and of course, this is just another report, another JRXML file. Actually, it resolves into a Jasper file. You can see here the path. This one happens to be in the common folder, submemo.jasper. So it's just going to point to another Jasper file. Now that Jasper file will have its own query, probably up there, or if it has a table, then it'll have more queries off to the side as well. But so you don't actually have, you don't see over here where you actually have the subreport in the report inspector, there are no parameters or variables or fields to add there. However, you still have to pass those parameters down, so you do that for a subreport over in the properties panel. So right over here, parameters. Click here, and these are the two parameters we pass down, record ID and table ID. So it starts out and it grabs the record ID from the main query. We'll go look at that in a second. And the table ID, we pass that down. That's probably the sales order table 101, 201, 31, 20. And then in the subreport, let's open that up and take a look at it. You'll see how that's used in the query there. Don't know why my computer's so slow at this. All right, let's just open it manually then. Common submemo. So in this query, you see select everything from memo, so it's going to grab all these fields, where the table ID is that table ID, 101, 201, 31, 20 we just passed down, and record ID is that, which is the sales order number in this case, and order by date created. And then, of course, those memos all show up in a row there. So there's your introduction, your overview for tables and subreports.